I'm Brittany Ramsey. Welcome to this edition of Northwest Newsweek. The victim of a murder last weekend in Manitowaj was identified this week, and it was also confirmed the accused and the deceased were brothers who shared the same father. OPP were called to a disturbance at a residence on Flicker Street last Saturday, and officers found a young man with life-threatening injuries. The victim, who's been identified as 18-year-old Wayne Allen, was transported by Superior North EMS to hospital, where he was pronounced dead.
Our officers at the scene arrested a 38-year-old male identified as Jesse Allen, who's also a resident of Manitowaj and a relative of the deceased. Mr. Allen, Jesse Allen, has since been charged with first-degree murder, contrary to Section 235, Sub 1 of the Criminal Code. Mr. Allen was also remanded to custody and is currently being held at the Thunder Bay District Jail.
Jesse Allen's next court date is on February 16th. The family of a Dennorwick man is still looking for answers 3 months after his death was declared a homicide. The OPP admits the case is very complicated. The victim's wife says his murderer was a neighbor who was released from custody just hours after a major drugs and weapons arrest. That neighbor was later found dead in a nearby structural fire. Adam Riley has the story and a warning some of the details may be disturbing.
75-year-old Rick McLeod was described as a person who loved life, fishing, and his family. On November 5th, 2020, his wife Linda witnessed as he was shot and killed inside their house by their neighbor, 48-year-old Daniel Lethbridge.
Dan opened up the door and had shot Rick once. It was so I kind of ducked because I wasn't sure what was going on. And then Rick had said Linda, and then I went to turn around, and that's when Dan shot him again.
McLeod says after shooting her husband, Lethbridge stared at her for a moment before closing the door and exiting the house. It is believed Lethbridge then went over to his own home and set it on fire. The OPP closed the Trans-Canada Highway as officers searched for a shooter, and fire crews attempted to control the blaze. Human remains were later discovered in the ruins, and this week the OPP confirmed what many have suspected.
On February 3rd, we had the results come back from the office of the chief coroner, and they positively identified the human remains as 48-year-old Daniel Lethbridge. Daniel Lethbridge was the person that owned the residence that was engulfed in flames.
Despite that confirmation, McLeod says Lethbridge still has not been implicated for her husband's murder. When asked for Rick McLeod's cause of death, Golding says the OPP are withholding that evidence at this time, and therefore was unable to confirm that McLeod was shot. His widow is also still wanting answers as to how Lethbridge was allowed to be released from custody. He had been arrested 24 hours prior to the incident, following an assault investigation which prompted a search of his home and the police seizure of 19 firearms and over 400 cannabis plants.
It's just the whole thing, like there's unresolved answers and nobody's really saying anything.
We put together a case with evidence, and it's presented to the courts, and then they did make the decision on whether or not a person is released. I understand the transparency portion of this doesn't look good, but once again, it's in the hands of the courts.
Golding notes the investigation is still ongoing at this time and believes more information will be released in the future. Meanwhile, Linda McLeod is left waiting with just memories and the trauma of what she witnessed. Adam Riley, TBT News.
There were multiple collisions on area highways as a winter storm hit the region this week. Crashes were reported Thursday near Rossport and Vermilion Bay, and on Wednesday, a two-vehicle collision on Highway 17 east of Uppsala claimed the life of a Sioux Lookout man. The incident took place shortly before 3:30 Wednesday afternoon when an SUV collided with a pickup truck. The driver of the SUV, 47-year-old Ravindra Kumar Nayak, was pronounced dead on the scene, while the driver and passenger of the pickup truck were treated for minor injuries by paramedics. The OPP have begun an investigation into the collision and are asking anyone who may have witnessed the incident to contact them. The collision also caused a lengthy highway closure with traffic backed up in both directions. Meanwhile, a second incident in Uppsala further affected traffic as a transport missed the turn while pulling out of a local service station. A 46-year-old Red Rock man has been charged with 4 counts of sexual assault and 3 counts of sexual interference. Nipissing OPP say the charges come following a complaint that was laid January 28th over assaults in Red Rock that allegedly occurred over a decade ago. Police also say the name of the accused is being withheld to protect the identity of the victims and that their investigation is ongoing. The provincial stay-at-home order is set to expire this coming week, and as we await details from the Ford government, the Northwestern Health Unit's top doctor thinks the timing is reasonable to lift the restrictions in that part of the region. The NWHU reported just one new COVID case in the Kenora region Friday. At week's end, there were 10 active cases in its catchment area, 1 in the Dryden-Red Lake region, 6 in Kenora, and 3 in the Sioux Lookout area. Dr. Kit Young-Hoon says she hasn't been told if the stay-at-home order will be ending next week or not. With active cases declining in her area, as well as a slow decline in neighboring areas like Manitoba and Thunder Bay, Young-Hoon says she's not opposed to lifting restrictions, but the public must continue to follow public health
If anything,
measures.
we just need to be additionally vigilant because it shouldn't suddenly be a scenario where we can suddenly all start doing lots more socializing and going out and interacting. I think that would be the concern. I think that the lifting of restrictions has to be mindful that risk still exists, and we want to prevent having to move back to further restrictions.
COVID vaccinations are now going full steam ahead at several remote First Nations. It's a collaboration between Orange, local EMS staff, the Anishinaabe Nation, and the Ministry of Health. And vaccination teams headed to 6 communities on Monday morning. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Neskantaga Chief Chris Moonius was among those getting their dose of the COVID-19 vaccine on Monday. Operation Remote Immunity will service a total of 16,000 people in 31 remote communities. This past week, crews of 6 departed from Orange Hangars in Thunder Bay, Sioux Lookout, and Timmins to deliver doses of the Moderna vaccine to 6 fly-in communities.
Going into the community and coming back the same day for 5 days. So essentially the idea is we have teams of 6. So there's a task team leader, a 2IC or a second in command, 3 vaccinators, and an admin person. And we depart from the hub in the morning with the vaccines and the equipment, land in the community, go to a central location that's been obviously previously determined.
With Weenusk First Nation being the trial run the previous week, the communities of Kasheshuan, Neskantaga, Slate Falls, Muskrat Dam, Fort Severn, and Webequie all saw their first round of vaccines completed by week's end.
So far, everybody's been extremely open to the idea and want us to come in community and help out. And yeah, the communities have been extremely supportive.
Across their 6 sites, 5 staff were giving the dose, completing 3 per hour on the first day. Durham thinks there may be room for improvements, especially when they get to the second round of vaccinations.
It will require 2 vaccinations, so we're looking at about 32,000 total vaccinations. And the operation is running, so we're starting today was the official launch of Operation Remote Immunity. So it'll run from today until about the beginning of April, and that includes both vaccinations.
This coming week, the teams will be bringing the Moderna vaccine to Attawapiskat, Fort Albany, Nibinamik, Sachigo Lake, Wapakika, Cat Lake, and Poplar Hill. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Meanwhile, officials with the regional hospital say despite the ongoing delays with Pfizer vaccine shipments to Canada, they're confident Thunder Bay's long-term care residents and staff will get the second doses within the recommended timeframes. The first vaccines were administered just before Christmas to staff at local seniors' homes, and the hospital then got clearance in early January to bring the Pfizer doses to the 6 long-term care facilities in the city. So far, more than 2,600 vaccines have been given out. 634 people have received both doses, while over 1,400 are awaiting the second dose. The recommended time frame for that second dose is 21 to 27 days for seniors and up to 42 days for staff. Hospital spokesperson Tracy Smith says they held back a quantity of doses and have another shipment expected soon, but she unfortunately can't provide an exact date for that upcoming delivery.
So there are about 1,400 people who have been vaccinated who are waiting for their second dose. And with our current supply and what we expect to receive, we do anticipate more doses arriving shortly, actually. With that, we do anticipate being able to deliver all of those second doses within the timeframes of the ministry.
Once those Pfizer deliveries resume, Smith says they'll be able to resume providing first doses to long-term care homes in the rest of the district and then to the next priority groups for the vaccine. A decision by the Manitoba government to exempt Manitobans who travel into Ontario from quarantining doesn't sit well with Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford. That decision created a very difficult situation, according to Rickford, who notes the Northwestern Health Unit has allowed Manitobans to enter Ontario to tend to their properties, but requires them to isolate if they stay longer than 24 hours. Rickford says the Intergovernmental Affairs Ministry was quick to reach out to the Manitoba government and Premier Brian Pallister to express both concerns and the unacceptable nature of the decision.
For us in Northwestern Ontario, we have limited resources when it comes to providing health care as it is. And so the idea that the province of Ontario and all of its hardships related to a stay-at-home order could and would see Manitobans come into our region under an exemption when we're largely confined to our homes, of course, was the issue that your listeners.
And that stay-at-home order is expected to be lifted later this week. When we come back, concerns grow over whether or not there will be a downhill ski season this year. Stay with us. As we await more details on whether or not the provincial stay-at-home order will end next week, the uncertainty surrounding ski hills remains as well. Ski hills across the province have been empty during what would normally be considered prime skiing season. Many clubs have invested in their hills already this season, and others, like the Dryden Ski Club, have actually seen a surge in memberships. However, DSC Vice President Julie Edwards is worried that some people may want their memberships refunded if the province keeps hills closed. She adds, while things look positive now, there hasn't been any instructions as to how to open the ski hills safely, so there is still a lot of uncertainty around whether or not they will open up this year.
Recently, our MPP, Greg Rickford, has come forward to say we're hoping that we'll be able to open, ski resorts will be able to open. However, we haven't heard under what type of prescriptions or any type of reservations. So at this point, everything is quite uncertain. If we are going to open, that's in almost a week's time, and we don't know what we're going to be held to. So the time frame essentially until opening, if that's even the case, is getting shorter and shorter.
Edwards says northern ski hills are primarily supported by local communities and don't often attract residents from southern Ontario, where COVID-19 cases remain high. A restaurant in Dryden was determined to reopen during the stay-at-home order, but that commitment has changed following some surprise financial support. Late last month, the owners of the Black Barrel Eatery announced they would be opening for dine-in service as they'd been struggling financially and would be forced to close due to the continued lockdown measures. The restaurant opened last year when case counts were low, but have been unable to receive relief funding from the province as that support is only offered to businesses established pre-pandemic. The restaurant backed away from its decision to reopen after they received financial support from an investor and even more online.
At first, it was really nice to see the comments and feedback that we were getting. We even had phone calls as far as Vermilion Bay, friends in Toronto and stuff like that, giving us really like positive fuel.
Words cannot express how appreciative we are for somebody taking a step forward. It shows community support. It shows that they see our dedication and our drive to keep going every single day. And it's nice that people appreciate like a new small business owners. And they want to see us keep going and they want to see us flourish in the community.
Cordero says they are unsure as to how long the lockdown will last and believe the financial contribution they've received will allow them to stay open for at least another month and a half. Scriber's Fire Department has added a new vehicle to its fleet. It'll improve the department's response capabilities, and it's caught the attention of local residents. Adam Riley has details.
Up until now, this was the vehicle that acted in a support role for the Scriber Fire Department. It is built on the frame of a standard pickup truck and, as Fire Chief Jan Morrison explains, could seat only 5, which showed to be a bit of a problem.
It was very tight, with a couple guys in the back seat full of bunker gear and equipment. You were knocking elbows.
In addition, Morrison says it was getting old and finding replacement parts was getting harder and expensive. Now meet its replacement, a 2007 heavy rescue vehicle that dwarfs not only its predecessor, but also the 2 pumper trucks currently used by the department. The vehicle was formerly operated by the Owen Sound Fire Department before being purchased from a dealership in Manitoba for $100,000. Mayor Dave Hamilton says the vehicle is being paid for from a reserve fund as there are no provincial or federal funding options available for municipal fire departments. But he knows the vehicle will serve the community well and is impressed by what it is capable of.
Just to see this unit is very impressive. Anybody that has seen it or would like to see it, we certainly could take it around town, because it is a very impressive and very useful unit, and we're happy to have it.
Morrison says in addition to the new truck being a one-of-a-kind on the North Shore, the vehicle has several features that only add value to the fire department's resources. It can act like a pumper when needed with its built-in pumping and water storage system. It carries a variety of required rescue and support equipment, including everything from hose lines to the jaws of life, and unlike its predecessor, can carry 6 firefighters comfortably.
People can sit in the back of this truck here and have a significant amount of room. This is a sizable truck, even on the interior space. It's a big step up.
Morrison notes almost 50% of the calls received by Scriber Fire are highway related, and in addition to the size and age of the previous support vehicle, its lack of features prevented it from responding alone.
We were finding that we were sending not only that utility truck out on the highway calls, but we were also having to send out a second, sometimes even a third truck carrying other equipment related to spill cleanup, things like that.
A decision on what will happen to the previous truck has yet to be made. However, Morrison says options could include declaring it surplus and either selling it to a private citizen or offering it up to a neighboring community fire department. Adam Riley, TBT News.
There's been a change in the upper ranks at the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. The agency in charge of creating an underground repository for Canada's nuclear waste has a new vice president in charge of site selection. Lise Morton has spent the last 20 years at Ontario Power Generation working in the field of nuclear waste management. She's replacing Ben Belfidel, who is retiring from the role. Over the last decade, the agency has been searching for a suitable site and a host community, and in late 2019 had whittled the list of potential sites down to Ignace and South Bruce County. Borehole testing has been carrying on throughout the pandemic, and a final decision on a location is planned to be made by 2023. Morton says there is still a lot of work to be done with regional stakeholders, which includes creating partnership agreements with municipalities, residents, and area First Nations.
They'll have an opportunity to really feed into what that looks like and what does that partnership agreement look like. So that's the type of work we'll be doing over the next couple of years. But it really is very community driven as well. So we really work hard with the community so that they have a chance to have their say and to put their take, if you will, on what they want to see coming out of this.
Morton understands there are varying degrees of willingness and knows there are some in the region who oppose the project. She adds COVID-19 restrictions are making it difficult to hold information sessions with the public, but hopes under her lead there will be more creative ways to engage with interested parties. And coming up after the break, an artist and scriber is beating the pandemic blues by creating majestic works of art on area lakes and fields. There's never been a better time to be a pilot or a drone operator in the Scriber area, thanks to the creations of snowshoe artist Kim Osmussen. He's been expanding his skills in recent years and showcases his designs on open fields and frozen lakes around the community. Corey Nordstrom has more.
So it's basically one star within another star within a hexagon within a circle.
This is Kim Osmussen's latest work on Ronji Lake. The Scriber resident has been creating snowshoe art since February of last year. He's finished 15 of the intricate designs so far, helping him get past the boredom of the pandemic.
It's given me something to do, but you know, it also gets your brain going on the creative piece. Can I do that? I'll see a drawing. Can I make that? And it gets kind of difficult because you can't just walk all over the field. Once you've made that footprint, you're hoofed. You have to commit to that footprint. So I like the challenge of just trying to plan it out.
The projects can take days to complete and require as much as 32 kilometers of walking. So the 62-year-old tries to limit his time on them to just 3 hours a day, while often recruiting his friends to join in. But the teaching of his art hasn't always been limited to his social bubble. In his career in the education field, Osmussen has brought the hobby to a number of Superior Greenstone District schools.
We sit in a classroom, we get them to draw it, and they might make them draw it twice as big, but take that drawing that you've done and take it outside and actually build it. That is a totally different grasp.
Instead of using GPS for his designs, Osmussen usually opts for tape measures and a transit level among a number of tools. He says he wants to pass down his knowledge by making how-to videos next winter in hopes of landing his North Shore community a unique distinction.
We're trying to brand, or I am anyways, trying to brand our town of Schreiber as the snowshoe art capital of Canada. So as we get more and more snowshoe arts along the way, hopefully we can brand ourselves like that more officially.
Corey Nordstrom, TVT News.
The NHL's Chicago Blackhawks have started every home game this season with a land acknowledgement accompanied by Indigenous art. That artwork was created by Ojibwe artist and former Red Lake resident Patrick Hunter. The Blackhawks reached out to Hunter this past offseason to see if he was interested, and although he was hesitant at first, he says he realized he had the opportunity to be part of something with real integrity. The inspiration for the designs were twofold: the 7 First Nation communities in the Chicago area and Hunter's own Indigenous background.
Ojibwe people are also kind of part of that Great Lakes region that we would have traveled around and traded with other First Nations and stuff. So there was like old pictures of artifacts that they had found. And I mean, florals are also a big pattern up in these parts. And as well, she didn't want me to just do work that I thought would look good down there. She was like, be reflective of who you are as an artist too. For its original steward.
Hunter says the reception to his work has been overwhelming. He said people of all backgrounds reach out to him to compliment his designs, which he says he didn't expect. And that's all for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.